when I got out, I just decided I wanted to go the school route. And I think, honestly, it's one of the best routes you can go because, dude, the GI Bill, especially the post 9/11 GI Bill, dude, that is the most delicious thing, I think, that exists.
Oh, man.
For better. I know, yeah. I think it's a good choice of word, actually. But
no, I think it is. I think some people might be like, wait, what? But it is unbelievable. Welcome to another episode of the Military Bottom Line Podcast, where we help you make the most out of your military contract. Today on the show, I have Adam Brown. Adam Brown was a Marine for 5 years. They sent him to school to learn Arabic. He did 2 deployments to Afghanistan and has since become an accountant and thrived after his transition. He is one of the most genuine and heartfelt people I know, and he's got a lot of good information to share with those people who are thinking about joining the military, currently in, or maybe they're approaching their transition out. But he's got a lot of information and a lot of good things to say. Hope you guys enjoy the show. If you continue to enjoy these shows, I'd hope you subscribe and follow at Military Bottom Line on Instagram for more. Would love to kind of get a picture of your military experience and why you ended up joining the Marine Corps of all branches.
Yeah, the Marines, man, the finest or whatever. No, it is. But so, for me, and I hope this speaks to a lot of people, but, I didn't really know what I was going to do with my life. Like I had almost no idea what I was going to do with my life. And I'd come into a lot of circumstances in my own life where I felt like, dude, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to stay. So I was, from Topeka, Kansas, which is a great place, but I didn't know if I was going to stay there or, find a position somewhere or go to college at the University of Kansas or Kansas State or something like that. I didn't have a plan. And in high school, my dad was in the Marines. I had experience with Marine ROTC. So I knew about the military, but it was really this kind of just open idea that I figured maybe I could use this to figure something out about myself, about my direction. And so that's kind of the thinking that I had. And so I didn't really know why I was going to join or what I was going to do. But again, as a kid, I had gotten into a lot of, kind of the bad things too. I'd, gotten into alcohol at a young age and drugs and stuff. And again, this all contributed to like me not knowing where I wanted to go or what I wanted to do.
Of course.
But being able to see the Marines as that opportunity, and my dad being in the Marines, he told me like, hey, you could go into the Marines or into any branch of the military for that respect and do a job that, you think you'll get something more. You'll learn a new skill or you'll grow in, and you can take that out of the military. And that's kind of the mindset I went in with. And that's why I ended up, doing the ASVAB and all that stuff. And I ended up settling with intelligence. And that was kind of a field that I thought, oh, this is kind of out there and could help me get to where I want to go even if I haven't figured that out yet. And so for me, intelligence was what I joined for. And my dad, who was a Marine for 30 years, he told me like, don't do infantry. And the reason he said that was because I think he had seen a lot of people do that and get out and not do a lot with it.
Yeah.
I won't say that there's anything wrong with that. Some people just want that adventure. Totally resonate with that. But I think even if you do want that adventure, you have to think through like, just think a little bit further as well. Like, what am I trying to get out of the military? Like, do I want this lifelong adventure, or am I eventually maybe going to get out, and what do I want to take out?
Yep.
So
for sure. So in intelligence, what does that encompass? Because I know you did some different things within that, and you learned like Arabic or Pashto or something like that. They sent you to school for a year plus. Like, so intelligence isn't a super narrow pathway where you like sit on a computer, look at maps all day. So give us a little insight on what that means.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because there are some people that look at maps all day. That's topography. But no, I think intelligence, it has a lot of facets to it. For me, I joined as a specialist. And the specific code I think is 0231. But it has this ability to, you kind of take this analytical approach to things, or you can become an analyst, but you can also go into different things, like you were saying, maps or language or, just different realms. And, whether it's maybe infantry level or maybe at a bigger scale.
Yeah.
For me, I just kind of joined with the all-inclusive approach and kind of try to find my way. So I went to first school in Virginia and did intel school at the Navy Marine Corps Intelligence Center there in Dam Neck, Virginia. Really great school, learned a lot. And while I was there, I actually took an exam to test whether I could learn languages. And this was really interesting because when they marketed it to us, it was kind of like, oh, like, here, come after work hours to take this test and see if you can learn languages. I didn't really think much of it, but I was like, you know what, I'll try really hard. And I think this kind of speaks to any opportunity you get in the military. Just do your best. Don't blow it off, because it could lead to something you don't even know, right?
For sure. Yeah.
And I had friends that kind of blew it off, and they didn't score well, obviously. But I just was like, I'll try it. It was the weirdest test I've ever taken. Basically tried to teach me, like, it kind of like tried to teach you a language that was made up and see if you could apply the principles later in the test. Like, if you could remember them and then apply the rules of grammar and things that the test itself teaches you. So anyways, I did well on it, and they told me, hey, you're going to go to Defense Language Institute. And I was like, okay, I mean, that's cool, I guess. Can I choose my language? They're like, no, you can't. You're going to learn
Yeah,
Arabic.
I was going to say, so they gave you the option to take the test, and then once you did well on the test, you didn't get the option of whether or not you wanted to learn a language or what language.
Yeah, that's right. And again, that's a good point about the military. Hey, it'll give you some of what you want, but there's always going to be something they want on the back end.
For
right?
sure.
So you got to be ready for that. So for me, they told me, hey, you're going to go learn Arabic. And what I learned was called Modern Standard Arabic. And so it's not really spoken anywhere. It's what they call the formal language. But still, I was excited. And I think at the time that I went to school, and this was around 2008, 2009, the Marines were still in Iraq. So Arabic is spoken there, the Iraqi dialect. So they were still sending a lot of linguists and intelligence people that could learn languages to school to learn Arabic. So that's why I ended up going. But I'll be honest with you, dude, it was some of the best years of my life. Like,
really?
Because I got to go to an Army base, the Presidio of Monterey in Monterey, California, NorCal.
Not a bad place. Yeah.
Dude. Wow. It was such a fun time. It was a mixed base. Like, we had a Marine detachment, and then you had like an Air Force detachment, and you had Navy and Army. Like, everybody was there. I think there were even some Coast Guard people there too. But everybody was kind of assigned a language. And so you had languages like Chinese and Spanish and French and Arabic and Farsi and all kinds of languages and all kinds of military members learning. It was basically a college with just military members. And so again, dude, I just remember, like, we would go out and do those Marine Corps things like PT, right? Yeah. We got to go run around. And I mean, what else do you do for PT? You run around and sing songs or whatever. But we would do that along the beach, you know what I mean? In Northern California. And that was, I can still remember, like, even waking up with my friends that I, like, maybe roomed with or were in my barracks, and we would just go PT by ourselves, and we would just go running along the beach, or just enjoying that nice environment. So I was there for about, it was like a 60-something, 70-something week course.
Wow.
And we did Arabic all day, like 8 hours a day. So really
were you
tough.
required, like, were your roommates in the same Arabic class and you're supposed to be speaking Arabic after hours and everything like that, or?
That's a really good question. Yes. So, I got lucky, I think, because I don't think it's designed that way. But I ended up rooming with someone who was in my class.
Gotcha.
And we were supposed to do that. But I'll be honest with you, when you learn a language, a lot of it is, especially when it's that quickly, it's memorization. And so you're going over a lot of flashcards. You're trying to remember how the language is written.
Yeah.
Dude, it's really complicated. And if you give enough time to it, I think, if anybody takes anything from this, whatever you want to do, even if it's out there, if you give enough time to it and effort, you can do it. And that's what I kind of learned at this place was I learned a whole new language. And it just really took giving the time in, having the friends around me that were also in the same class, and we kind of encourage each other, and also taking the time to just do the hard work of studying. Yeah. Now, I had the benefit of, in the military, you don't really have a choice, right? Yeah. You're kind of stuck in the barracks. You're stuck in the base. You can't really I just want to go and do my own thing. Mm-hmm. You don't really have as much of that choice, but anyways, it's good to focus on that. And I learned it, and I did well actually coming out of that.
So where did, after completing that school, where did that language and that MOS take you within the Marine Corps and beyond,
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I went to school with a lot of people who joined the military specifically to be linguists. And it was really interesting because, dude, that school was really hard. And for those of you don't understand how the military works, if you fail the school that you were assigned to do, they can send you anywhere in the Marine Corps or the military that they feel the need for you to serve. And that could be administration or being a cook or something. So I went to school with a lot of these guys. For me, I had already passed my MOS school, so I didn't have that worry. But I still wanted to try hard, right? And like I told you earlier, you got to, anytime the military throws an opportunity, you just do your best. Just put aside all the preconceived notions, do your best. And so what that did was it led me, and I graduated there. This is I'll be honest with you, this is kind of a good benefit. It kind of ate up some of my contract time. So I get to spend part of my 5-year contract, a year and a half of that was at Monterey.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful place.
Plus, boot camp. Yeah, the first 2 years.
So for 2 years I was in training. I didn't get to the fleet until I was a corporal.
Yeah.
And I was what they call a boot corporal, which has its, you can make fun of it in the military and stuff, but I'll be honest with you, it's the best thing ever because it just means that I had so much training. I felt really comfortable when I came to the fleet. So I went from that school to Camp Pendleton. Camp Pendleton in Southern California. So anyways, pretty much my whole military kind of career was in California.
Yeah.
But I loved Camp Pendleton, and within, I would say 3 months of me getting there, they sent me over to Afghanistan.
Within 3 months. Shock to the system?
Yeah.
Dude, no doubt.
It was, and this is what kind of addresses your other question. You'll kind of learn this about the military or government organizations sometimes. They always have a good plan, maybe at the onset, but sometimes it just doesn't come to fruition.
Yeah.
For me, learning Arabic was kind of designed for Iraq. But by the time I had graduated the school, a year and a half, after that decision they made, the Marines had pulled out of Iraq. And so now we were going to Afghanistan, and it was just that's a whole nother language, Pashto and Dari. And so they basically kind of said, hey, cool that you went to the language school. Go ahead and go to the fleet, and you're going to be an intel specialist, just like what you were originally trained to do. And you can use the language and stuff to help you, but you're going to do an intel position job.
Interesting. So you never worked as a linguist?
No, I never did. And I know, man, it's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
But again, I got the great benefit of going to that amazing school.
Yeah.
I learned a new language and got paid to do that. Again, try hard in all those endeavors. It's worth it. And when I got to the fleet and I went to Afghanistan and stuff, I actually did help out. I used my language because some of the Taliban insurgents that we were tracking down, obviously the religion of Islam and the Quran is very influential. I could help understand some of the threat letters and some of the things that they communicated in writing because of my understanding of Arabic. And so again, it just kind of came full circle, but just not in the way that
for sure.
Right.
And if I recall correctly, doesn't the military, if you speak another language, you can test for if you speak well enough that you can actually earn additional monthly income?
Yes.
Do you know that language?
Yeah, so I did that once and ended up getting, so it's kind of like I think it's a year by year basis or something.
Okay.
So they kind of force you to stay, in
Proficient
depth in
to a
whatever
degree.
language. But
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, I had friends that went to the Defense Language Institute that like, I mean, because the Spanish course there was like 6 months
Mm.
and super short, but like immediately once they finished, they took that test and then they just got extra money, like several $100s even in a paycheck,
Wow.
right?
For
Or a month.
Spanish.
Yeah, just for knowing another language. And I did that once. I eventually kind of forgot enough Arabic to to test out because I
Yeah.
wasn't using it as much
Mhm.
as I wanted to. But dude, that benefit was incredible. And I had a lot of friends that took advantage of that too.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So I mean, 1 year's at least worth of that proficiency pay for that language kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is it
And
for the time that you would have expected it to take to remain proficient, you think it would have been worth it in hindsight?
it would have been.
Yeah,
And it's kind of like one of those regrets. I think we all have those regrets. Like,
sure.
I played an instrument. I played the violin when I
Mm,
was in high school and middle school, and I kind of stopped and I didn't really take it up again. You kind of regret those decisions, right?
yeah,
The language in the military is kind of like that.
yeah.
You should stay proficient because it's worth it.
Mm,
Um, Obviously, it's a time commitment, and you sometimes feel like in the moment, like I don't want to have to put in the time or the effort
yeah,
to find a community to speak to, or or to get on Rosetta Stone or whatever kind of resource you want. But dude, it's really worth it. And later on, you do come to regret some of those things you didn't take advantage of. So I would
yeah.
say it's 100% worth it.
Noted. Noted. So you spent what, 8 months or so in Afghanistan?
Yeah, my first one was 7 to 8 months or
Okay.
so. I came back and I did really well on my deployment. So I was an intelligence analyst and I was kind of an all source analyst. I was assigned to kind of like a high hierarchy. And what I mean by that is like you have people that are attached right at the infantry level, like infantry battalion or the regiment, or like it kind of gets bigger. I was at one of the higher levels. And so I just helped kind of write articles and do research and help commanders within that larger setting understand what they needed to do as part of their tactics.
Gotcha.
When I came back from that deployment, I got switched from the top, from that big area, to counterintelligence company as part of like a very small unit.
Hmm.
So this whole time I'm with First Intelligence Battalion, with the kind of large area at first, and then came down to this after my first deployment. And so from there, I spent about a year or so kind of working with the team, getting to know who they were, and yeah, it was kind of like basically a team of people who collect human intelligence,
Yeah.
and that just means that they they run sources or things, and we try to generate reports that we pass up to the higher tier. So I came alongside as the team analyst, and I would help organize some of that and try to see some of the big picture out of some of the small reports that we were creating. But I spent about a year with them training, and then I went to deploy again with them back to Afghanistan, and that was about a 6 month deployment
Well,
as well.
how,
So
how like what was your thought on those deployments? I mean, did you enjoy the time? Were they beneficial to you at all, or was it just kind of like a drag?
yeah, that's a really good question because it just it and when you look back on it, it's always different,
Of
right?
course, yeah.
But in the moment, I could see that, or I felt like the days went by slow,
Mm,
but the weeks went by fast.
yeah.
And I think you only really get that if you've been deployed. Um, but there were a lot of times, a lot of parts that I hated
Mm,
about being deployed. I think you're working at least 12 hours a day, and you
yeah.
don't get weekends or anything like that. And even if you're in, what they call a pogue job, you're not in a non-infantry position.
Yeah.
Sometimes they use that as an excuse to work you harder
Mm,
because, oh, you're not out and doing patrols and on the front line, so don't complain, just work and
yeah.
support these guys. And
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, we all want to do that. We all want to help anybody who's going out on the front lines, right?
Sure.
But it's hard. And I think the way I felt was mixed. at the time I struggled with it a lot, but I realized that this is just where I'm supposed to be. And you know what? Like, they do pay you extra money and stuff. Like, you're able to save and invest and like not spend. I think not spending is one of the biggest benefits of a deployment that people don't realize. But you do get those benefits. And so there's kind of this mixed feeling of like, from day to day, you'll fluctuate between like, okay, I'm here, I'm ready, I'm good, I want to support people, I want to help them. And then another day you're just like, dude, what am I doing? Like, all my friends are in college right now. Like, they're enjoying their lives. So again, all that to say, I think it's a very mixed experience depending on the person. Yeah. But I actually did enjoy it. And looking back on it, I think I slightly more enjoyed it than struggled with it.
Then what? I'm sorry? Then struggled with it.
Then struggled with it, yeah.
Gotcha. That's good. That's good to hear. So how do you feel like between, deployments, the language, all this training you've gotten in 5 years? You did 5 years, right? Total?
5 years total. Yep.
Okay. How do you feel like that has benefited you and prepared you for, your life now, as you've been out a couple of years now and doing well?
Yeah. Really good question. When I went in, I had no idea of a life plan. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I was going to get out of Kansas or stay in Kansas.
Yeah.
But joining the military enabled me to do a very awesome job and learn some really cool things like Intel and Arabic, and then be able to see what that looked like on the other side. So when I came back from my second deployment, I pretty much immediately got out. So just the timing, right? I had that training for 2 years, and then I was only in the fleet for about 3 years. And I had one deployment, and then I came back and rested for a year, and then I had immediately another deployment. By the time of that second deployment, I was already on my way out. And I remember wondering if I was going to stay or go, and I ended up deciding that. And then again, this is different from person to person, right?
Of course.
But for me, I just wanted to have that experience of going to college and working like a normal job. And like, that was all I knew from 17 when I joined the military and went to boot camp to 23. I was in the Marines, and that's all I really was familiar with. So I wanted to have that experience. So that kind of outweighed the benefit of staying for me.
Sure.
And when I got out, I just decided I wanted to go the school route. And I think, honestly, it's one of the best routes you can go because, dude, the GI Bill, especially the post 9/11 GI Bill, dude, that is the most delicious thing, I think, that exists.
Oh, man.
For better. I know. Yeah. I think it's a good choice of word, actually. But
no, I think it is. I think some people might be like, wait, what? But it is unbelievable. Break it down, because I want, like, you went to an extremely expensive private school in Southern California.
I did.
And explain the GI Bill and how you made it work for you.
Yeah. So when I got out, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I think it's important to have a plan when you get out, but I knew I wanted to go to school. So I knew I wanted to take advantage of the GI Bill. And when I had joined, it was the Montgomery GI Bill, which is just a little bit different, but I don't think the benefits are as expansive. So I think if you had the option, the post 9/11 is probably better. But I ended up taking the post 9/11, and basically what it did for me was when I got out of the military, I had a few months between going to school and getting out. I basically kind of signed up for everything, and the school made sure that was all set up so that I could attend for the fall. And what the GI Bill kind of promised me was, hey, we're going to help you pay for books. So we're going to give you a stipend. We're also going to give you E5 pay basically every month that you're in school for the duration of the benefits. So I think the post 9/11 starts with 36 months.
Yeah.
And for each of those months, you get basically a sergeant or an E5 pay.
Dependent on location. So you're in Southern California, so it was
really good.
Yeah.
Where I was at, obviously the schools are more expensive, so it can kind of depend on where you go. But yeah, I'll be honest with you. You can look at the whole map of like what pays are higher. I'll be honest, they're good everywhere. Just try to focus on where you want to go to school and what you want to do, and it'll take care of you. But yeah, dude, I was able to get that. And here's what people don't realize, like, it's tax free.
Mm.
Like these benefits are tax free. They do
Yeah.
not count as a part of your taxable income.
Mm-hmm.
I was almost dumbfounded by that because people would ask me, how much are you making per year? And, every proud person's like, they want to mention everything, right? But technically I wasn't making that much because it's not taxable.
Yeah.
And so again, you start to realize these benefits in the military, like, dude, that's a huge benefit because where I was in California, taxes are a big deal here, right?
Yeah.
So
Was it LA County or Orange County that you're in?
I was in, I think technically LA County.
LA County, which is
So I think it's
obviously
even worse.
extremely expensive to to live
Yeah,
there, you know?
yeah. And I now live in Orange County, but I'll get to that in a little bit. But I I just really enjoyed the benefits of the book stipend. I mean, they give you like what, $1,000 per school year for books,
Mm.
which you use up very quickly. They give you that monthly stipend. If you joined with like some sort of kicker, they'll throw that in there tax free.
Yeah.
Dude, it's the greatest thing ever. Like, and I got to go to school. And I had friends, so I went to a school in Southern California, a private Christian college in Southern
Yeah.
California, really expensive. But that's where I wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to do that because of serving in the military. I never would have had that option.
Did the GI Bill pay for the entire amount of that private school? Because I thought it was only like a public school where it got capped out.
Yeah.
Like the most expensive public school, whatever. So
that's a really good question, and good point to bring up, because you still have to do the work of navigating like your finances.
Sure.
It doesn't do all the work for you. But I will say, in combination, for me personally, I'll speak to that first. In combination with the scholarships that came alongside the GI Bill for veterans,
yeah,
the Yellow Ribbon program that my school offered, and just other various means, I came out of school debt free, in a very expensive school. And it was, I mean, it's just a little bit cheaper than the University of Southern California. So if you want to get a reference, the University of Southern California, which, a lot of people want to go to, very expensive. You can pretty much pay for most of that.
Yeah.
With your GI Bill, if you are smart and you still engage the scholarships.
Sure.
So yeah, I engaged extra scholarships and opportunities, and was able to come out debt free. I think technically the GI Bill will help you. It'll cut off for private schools at like a certain amount per year of like 20 to 25 grand. And that seems like it's less of a benefit compared to like a state school. So I would still say it's good to measure out where you want to go, what school is good for the discipline maybe that you want to study. Just measure it out. But just know that, I'll be honest with you, with the additional scholarships and the Yellow Ribbon, even if you're going to a private school, you can generally make it work out to where you get out with no debt or very little debt.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because when you say like $25,000 a year, people are like, wait, like it's like my school's like $25,000 a semester. That doesn't cover anything. And so I think it's really important just to not look at like the GI Bill being this saving grace, like the big only option. There's also like so many other options that you need to look into and like strategize, because there are ways to, I don't want to say manipulate, but kind of like to play your cards a certain way where you can get the most out of it,
Exactly. And it's not manipulation. Just, you got to think of it like you're just being smart with the benefits that you deserve.
Yeah.
You deserve that benefit. That's kind of what everybody signed the post 9/11 GI Bill. They signed it into law for that reason, for those of us who serve, to go and take advantage of it. And your schools will offer other benefits. And so, yeah, I think it's really important people know, those private school benefits, they do cap off. But I'm telling you, like, there's a lot of private schools that, private colleges that will take that into consideration, and they will add benefits like the Yellow Ribbon and different scholarships. And I don't know if I've mentioned this, but there are some scholarships for veterans that you can't even qualify for unless you have GI Bill benefits remaining.
Yeah.
And so again, there's these opportunities that I think, if you have those benefits left, don't only just accept those, but see what else they can get.
Sure. I'm also curious, without getting like too personal into your, finances from the military time, because I know like if you start your military, I don't say career, for it's only 5 years, but military career being financially wise, like it's not like the benefits are only helpful like right here, right now. But if you leave the military, debt free, and you have this GI Bill benefit, you're not like using the GI Bill benefits to pay off all this debt that you accumulated. So you can be out of the military and still be benefiting off of your early wisdom 10 years later.
Yeah.
And so I'm just kind of curious as to how not only the GI Bill benefited you, but like just being wise financially while you were in the military, that benefited you beyond.
And here's this is going to be a kind of a tough part of my story, but I wasn't as wise as I wanted to be financially while I was in the military, but it's now something that, thinking back on, I could have done a lot. I could have made a lot better decisions. And specifically, I did really well with saving in the military, and especially on deployments. I didn't spend excessively. I saved money. But my problem was I didn't understand investing very well. And I didn't really understand investing really well until I got to college, because that's where I got my accounting degree. And now I understand finance and investing so much more. But what I did do was, and I think it still served me well, that anybody can do in the military, is you just want to you want to control your spending. It's easy to get into this mindset when you're 18 or 19, especially if you're that young. Some of you may join later, and I understand that. But especially when you're a young person, to just be like, oh, I want a super nice car, or I want all this stuff, because you're starting to get this paycheck for the first time in your life. And it's just nice. You don't know what to do with it. And you want to save it, but that's kind of boring, right? Like, and I met a lot of friends that were like that. And so I tried to take, more of a middle ground approach. I didn't try to buy like expensive stuff, and I just tried to save, but I also enjoyed myself, and hung out with people, and did, all those things cost money, taking trips. But I think if you take first that mindset, and then what I wish I would have done, that if you're in the military, you should 100% do, is take advantage of all the investment opportunities that you have.
Sure.
So learning to invest, figuring out what that is. The thrift savings plan is just the kind of the beginning. It's kind of the surface level.
Yeah.
Dude, there's so much more to investing than the thrift savings plan. And that should get you started. But there's so much. And here's the thing too. There's so many resources. You have financial planners, I think, that are on base, or you have counselors and things that can help you with that very thing.
Yeah.
And you can just go in and sign up for an appointment and get basically a plan that might change your whole life of financial planning. If you would just step out of the barracks, right?
Turn off the video games.
Exactly. Do it. Because again, I'm telling you, when you get to my age, like after you've gotten out and you've been to college and you're married and you're doing this stuff, you're trying to figure out adulthood, you look back on these decisions and you'll regret some of them. I won't say you're going to have deep regrets. I don't want you to freak out, but at the same time, there's these little things you can do, and that's one of them. So if I could speak to that real quick, I think investing is probably the most important thing you can do as a young person. I didn't learn it until later, but if I look back on my military career and think if I would have invested in a lot of things, I think it would have done me very well. So now I take an approach where I try to invest almost everything I can outside of my emergency fund. And so if you're in the military, I think it's wise to set yourself an emergency fund, but then beyond that, be aggressive. Sign up for TD Ameritrade, sign up for Charles Schwab, for Robinhood, and find maybe a counselor or a mentor that you respect that does well in this field, and just start investing in those companies and those mutual funds and those things with which you have conviction. As a young person who's an investor, you don't have to know who the next Amazon is. You don't have to do all that stuff, like all the research that the finance people do. Yeah. But you do have a benefit on your side, and that's time and conviction. And so when you invest in these companies that everybody knows about, like Apple and Microsoft, even though like we would call those the blue chip stocks, even just investing in those which I think is still a surface level of investing, you're going to get so much benefit more than just putting your money in a savings account that's paying you almost nothing in interest. Right. So I would just say, take that advice. Like, I wish I would have done that more. I didn't learn about the world of investing until after I got out of the military. But it's something I look back on now, and just, if I could encourage any military person that's still in, if you don't have an investment plan, you need to figure it out like right now.
When you say tomorrow. Conviction in the sense of investing, break that down a little bit, because that's not really a word I would use. So yeah. I want to hear more.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I studied accounting in school. Finance has always been something I've loved. I worked at a Big Four accounting firm since my time in college. And what I've learned about investing, especially as a young person, is you have this kind of fight between people who want to try to time the market and people that are kind of like, I would call like really the safe investors or the ETF investors. So an ETF is an exchange traded fund. I guess a better term is passive investing. There's kind of this fight between passive and active.
Yeah.
And when you have conviction, the benefit you get that's different from what any other, investment professional will tell you, is that you just take ownership of your own finances. And like, for example, for me, I realized early on that Microsoft was a company that I loved, and I wanted to invest in Microsoft. And I kind of knew that I could try to time the market and pull out of the market when Microsoft is doing well, and then when it goes down, try to put more in. The reality is you just can't do that consistently. You just can't. There's no one who can do it. There are people that can do it better than others, right? Yeah. But you just can't do it consistently. And so what you take, I think, from that is, and what conviction teaches you, is that you just try to find those companies that you really value. And I think, if you do a little bit of research, at least a little bit, and you understand that it's maybe a good company, and you can research who the CEO is, and there's all these fundamentals you can look at. You'll find that just sticking with that company for the long term is generally better than trying to do all these short-term trading strategies. So that's what I mean by conviction, is find those companies that you really appreciate and value. And I'll be honest with you, some of them won't make it. You'll learn the hard lesson, but you'll learn a much better lesson doing that than if you were to try to do short-term trading strategies and day trading and all this stuff where we just have to time everything. Again, you just can't do it consistently. So that's what I mean by conviction. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. Awesome. All right. So I'm curious that you've done a lot in the military, like a couple deployments. You've got to have, your highlight memory and your low memory. Like, I'm curious what the two ends of the spectrum as far as your best day and maybe an example of like what you didn't like about the military and why you ultimately decided it wasn't the best for staying in.
Oh man, that's a really good question. I think I'll start with my worst day. I think my worst day was probably in the midst of a deployment, and I was really frustrated with all the people around me. And it wasn't just their fault. A lot of people will say, "Oh, it's everyone else's fault." It was partly my fault. I wasn't probably the easiest person to deal with, especially as a young man working in a very important job, I think, overseas. I got a little bit of pride that got to me. But one of my worst days was when I felt at most odds with those people around me that I worked with. And it kind of taught me that, like, dude, there's something significant about the people you work with. And so I think there's lessons there for later. I don't need to get into it. But it was a time on deployment when I was at most odds with the people around me. Is probably one of my worst days. One of my best days was probably, and again, you got to take advantage of what the military provides to you, but being in Monterey, California, and just being, I think we were probably running as like a few of us were running together, and we were near Lover's Point, which is kind of like a small peninsula that goes out into the beautiful ocean. And there's like trails and stuff that you can run alongside. And there's all these old retired people that are super happy with their lives. And, it I think, some of the best times
Yeah.
to be just there with, and again, I wasn't at odds with any of these people. I was together with them. We were hanging out. We were in a great location, kind of that adventure that you're looking to get out of the military. I felt in that moment, I have that right in this moment. So again, being in Monterey, super beautiful.
Yeah.
And then being on deployment, a little tougher, but you can make it better if you're not at odds with the people around you.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So,
well, Adam, for a closing, on the bottom line of this is like, what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's, maybe graduating high school or even college and considering the military? Like, what's your best piece of advice for them?
This is something dear to my heart, and it's something I've had to learn painfully over time. But for anybody who wants to join the military and who's thinking about their life and wondering where it's going to go, I think my first point of advice is just to say, don't ever lose hope about what the future could hold, because it holds so many things that you don't even know could be so great for you. Yeah. And I'm not going to say that there's not painful times, but sometimes we tend to focus on that. We tend to focus on the painful around us, and we think, oh, life sucks and I don't want to have to deal with it. And I don't know how I'm going to get out of this situation or something. I just want to encourage you, if you're thinking that way, the military can provide a way for you to figure things out. For me, it helped me figure out what was on the other side. I wouldn't have chosen to live in California and to stay here after I got out of the military had I not joined the military. It prepared me emotionally. I learned a lot of things. I interacted with people I never would have chosen to interact with. I was kind of forced to, and I learned a lot. It helped me grow in so many ways, and ways that I wouldn't have even imagined when I was 17 or 18 years old. And so I think the military, for anybody who's wanting to join, take it seriously. Think about the job path that maybe you want to pursue, and wonder and ask the questions about, what can I get outside of this? I think if you're in the military, I think you make the most out of your experience. Take pictures. I wish I had taken more pictures.
Dude, me too, man. Yeah. Me too. You always feel kind of like a, I don't want to say douche, but like, you kind of like a jerk, like, oh, doing it for the gram. Like, everybody just assumes you're doing it for the gram, but just do it for yourself and take pictures of everything.
Here's the thing. I'll be honest with you. I've seen a lot of the gram. Like, if you're in the military, most of what you're posting is probably actually worthy for the gram. So
fair.
Don't feel bad about it. Your friends will make fun of you, but bear with it. Bear through it. It's worth it. And I wanted to say this, like, for those, I spoke to those preparing to join, for those that are currently in, make the most of your experience. Drink the Kool-Aid. You're going to get ridiculed for drinking the Kool-Aid, but drink it, because I promise you, when you get out later on, those are just the greatest memories.
That is so funny.
You were out in the field, even if you weren't deployed, if you were out in the field and you had to dig a trench or something, and your sergeant's yelling at you and you hate him, and those are just the experiences you look on and you go, man, I hated that, but dude, it was still kind of awesome to be with people and to go through that. So drink a little bit of the Kool-Aid.
Do you wish you drank more of it?
I do. I think this is a good point. When about 2.5 to 3 years in, I kind of realized I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And I had an attitude that kind of defined that about me. And I wish I wouldn't have had as much of that attitude of angst. But anyways, I think you can drink it. And even if you're getting out, just take it all in, because I promise you, it's something that you'll look back upon with fondness later down the line, even if you don't look upon it with fondness now. Yeah. And another part of that, of being in, is taking advantage of the educational opportunities, tuition assistance. There's so many things that you get even while in the military that you can take advantage of that I didn't, a lot of my friends didn't. Try to figure those out. Like, seriously, I promise you will come back to this at some point later in your life and go, I wish I had done this or that. Taking advantage of educational opportunities is one of them. Starting your saving and investing plan. Like I said, I started saving, but I didn't start investing. So try to figure out what investing is, what strategy is right for you. it's different for every person. But I think if you have conviction in the ways that you have conviction, you'll find a plan that works for you. When it comes to your professional resume, this is something now in the business world I'm seeing is more important than ever. People look at your resume and that's just kind of like a stamp of where you've been in the past. In the military, especially as a young person, you have the ability to start building that professional resume. So take note of those projects that the first sergeant made you do, right? Those admin things that you felt like were so annoying, right? Take note of those things, write them in like an Excel sheet or a Word document, even if it's just like, here's the date, here's the month, and here's the project I did. I promise you, when you learn later on about how to wordsmith your resume, those projects will probably make it into your professional resume and you'll make it sound really good. And, you know, to be honest, a lot of civilians on the other side will look at that and be like, dude, that's awesome. And you'll know in your mind, like, I mean, it wasn't, but, but you know what I mean? It's taking advantage of what you have before you. And I think building your professional resume is a part of that. I think if you're going to stay in the military, don't let people give you crap about it. And I'll speak to this too. When I got out of the military, you start to find like what you want to do in life. And anybody who finds what they want to do in life is going to drink the Kool-Aid for whatever they're doing in life, right?
Sure.
I've met finance people and accountants and lawyers that all drink the Kool-Aid all day long. And no one makes fun of them for it because they're successful.
Yeah.
So there's this part of like, if you decide you want to stay in the military, just enjoy it. Like take that ownership of it and don't let anybody else give you crap, because people are going to, but if you know what's best for you, just keep pursuing it. It's worth it. And that's what every successful person does.
Yeah.
Even if they don't want to admit it to you. Also, if you're staying in, find mentors, find people you respect. You know, I found a mentor early on and they kind of helped me develop in a lot of things. You miss a lot of blind spots when you're just trying to take things on yourself. And so if you find those officers, those staff NCOs that just know life better than you do, I think you'll find that you'll find yourself challenged in a lot of ways that are really for the better. And to be honest with you, when you get out of the military, you don't have that sort of connection anymore. There's no gunnery sergeant that's reminding you to do your taxes, or, you know, like it's just not, you're not a part of that close knit unit, and people don't care. The real world is a really hard place. And it's hard for those of us who have been in that close knit environment to come into the real world and realize, man, it doesn't feel like people are looking out for you as much. But if you build that mentorship network, you start seeking out those people early on, I think you'll find that you fare pretty well. Taking advantage of leadership opportunities if you're still in, you know, the extra billets, the B billets and stuff. Everybody I've talked to, people that did embassy duty or stuff like that, they've all been thankful that they did stuff like that. So that's a good opportunity to take advantage of. All the admin stuff, when you're in the military, you kind of have this nice environment to kind of monitor you while you start to take advantage of admin stuff. And by that, I mean like your fit reps, you know, or, you know, when you get promoted later on, you have admin stuff you just have to naturally take care of. Yep. Use the military to make those mistakes early on, because I'll be honest with you, when you get out and you buy a home and you got to try to deal with a mortgage and like all this admin stuff, it's going to come back and you're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
So use that environment in the military to learn with other people around you that can mentor you and help you. It's just worth taking advantage of. And if I could speak lastly to, if you're transitioning out of the military, I know this is common, but you got to have some sort of a plan. And that means a lot of things for a lot of different people.
Sure.
So let me say this. From my own experience, I thought I had a plan well enough of just going to college, but I didn't take advantage of the 6 or 7 months that I would be out and when I got to college. And I'll be honest with you, in that time, even just 6 or 7 months, I struggled with depression. I struggled with anxiety, with dealing with transition. I hadn't prepared emotionally or even financially for that gap of time before I wanted to get to where my plan started. And so I would encourage you, if you're transitioning out, like try to plan your plan as early as you can.
Yeah.
And just try to take account any variables. And don't forget the emotions. I think it's typical for men to forget this, but it's true for everyone. Don't underestimate your emotions in a transition. It can be a very tough time just from going to a place that you're familiar with to a place that you're not familiar with.
Yeah.
And you need to take it seriously. You need to talk about your feelings. It's actually more manly to do that than you think it is. It's more womanly to do that than you think it is. Talk about your emotions, be honest with yourself, experience that with people, because I promise when you transition, I think it'll help you a lot more. And so I just wanted to kind of share that with people that were preparing, that are in, that are staying in, that are
That's
getting
gold,
out.
man.
Yeah, I've seen that personally from my experience, and I know I can't relate with every person who's going through every one of those, but I hope that it can be a source of wisdom and just hopefulness for those people that are going through those stages.
Yeah. It'll all come to an end, like there's phases and things go up and down and get better, but the transition can definitely be rough. So I think that's a good call to actually communicate your struggles during that time. So that's good.
Yeah. And we all struggle with things. And I think we just need to be honest with ourselves and with others. And it's cool to be tough, and it's cool to be, I was in the Marines and like, I can do anything I want when I get out of the Marines, or any other branch, right? You all get that toughness with you.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you, we're still people. We still struggle with things. We still have feelings and emotions. And I think it's important to find those friends, those mentors, those communities. Just because you're in the military does not negate you from any of that, right? So take advantage of the situation you're in, build those relationships, and grow yourself financially, relationally, professionally, and in wisdom. I think that's the best.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Adam, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your wisdom. And I know you've given a lot of thought to, you do give a lot of thought to life. So I appreciate you kind of sharing that insight to help others.
Absolutely. So glad to.
Awesome. Thanks, man.